Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, and today's video is a really important one. I am going to be talking about the misconceptions that come with being autistic, and by that I mean things that autistic people might do or the way they might come across that is interpreted in the wrong way. So before I get into this video, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to receive notifications every time I upload a new video. And let's get on to the topic. So the first thing that I want to talk about is eye contact. Now, we have been taught growing up that you need to be making eye contact with people so that it shows you're engaged and you're listening and you're interested in what they're saying. But this proves a problem with autistic people. For me personally, it either depends on the person or how I'm feeling in that moment or what the situation is. But for the most part, I find it really difficult to make eye contact with people. And that is mainly because it physically makes me uncomfortable to look someone in the eyes. And I don't know why that is. I've never understood it, apart from the fact that a lot of autistic people also have the same problems. And so growing up in a society where you're taught to make eye contact or you seem rude is not very helpful for the autistic community. And so a lot of autistic people are misinterpreted as being rude or not interested because they're not always making eye contact at a person. But actually, it takes a lot more effort and energy to look someone in the eye, which is also making me uncomfortable, than it does to not look at them directly. And just because I'm not looking at them doesn't mean that I'm not engaged in their conversation. I actually sometimes find it easier to take in what the person is saying and actually engage in the conversation when I'm not focused on you need to be looking right at them. And so a lot of autistic people are interpreted as rude for not looking people in the eyes, but actually it's probably a lot easier for them to have a conversation with you when they're not looking at you in the eyes. So that is misconception number one, that autistic people are always rude and not interested in you. That's not true. We just have other ways of showing that we're interested, like replying to the conversation even if we're not looking directly at you. Another way in which autistic people may come across as not interested in the conversation is the fact that we like to fidget a lot. And by fidget I mean using fidget toys or stimming, and that can come across as, oh, you're more interested in this Tangle fidget toy than you are in my conversation. But again, actually allowing autistic people to use these things and do what they need to do in order to better focus them on the conversation is so important. And so I might be sitting here tangling around with my hairband, which I do quite often, and yes, I might be staring at it whilst I'm doing it, but it doesn't mean that I'm not engaged in this video or I'm not engaged in a conversation wherever I may be. It actually kind of soothes me and it helps me to stay focused and in the moment. So just bear that in mind before you start to assume that someone's not listening, because they most likely are. Another big one that I definitely struggle with a lot is initiating conversations. And I feel like a lot of autistic people are seen as, they never want to talk to me, they don't like making conversation, I won't talk to them. Where actually it can feel quite isolating and quite lonely, because a lot of the time I do want to have a conversation with certain people, but I am not confident in starting or initiating a conversation. For example, when I go to church on a Sunday, there's so many people I'd like to have a conversation with, but I'm not always confident to walk up to someone and say, hi, how are you, blah blah blah, and start a conversation. And so I often will just sit there hoping that someone will come up and talk to me and start up a conversation. But because I don't talk to other people, it may come across as, oh, she doesn't want to be spoken to, she doesn't want to have a conversation with me. And that can be quite frustrating because actually I do. I'm just not very confident in starting the conversation. Whereas if you come up to me and start a conversation, I'll quite happily join in with it. But it can be very difficult for an autistic person to be the one to start conversations. So if you do see someone by themselves, just go over and say hi. You never know, it might make the world of difference. Another thing that a lot of autistic people can struggle with is being touched. Now, again, this can vary for a lot of autistic people. I have a varying relationship with being touched. For me, it doesn't really make sense because with some people I am absolutely fine with them touching me, and other people I'm just like, not comfortable touching you. And I don't really know why that is. I've never really figured that out. I think it also depends on the situation, how I'm feeling in the moment. But for the most part, I find it difficult to touch a lot of people. So for example, I'm quite good with hugging people. I don't mind that. But it's when it's sort of skin to skin contact. So for example, people kissing me on the cheek. Touching, like shaking someone's hand. Can't do it, can't stand it. And I used to really struggle with this growing up in a church where we would say the peace, so you'd say, may the peace be with you and also with you, and then you'd go around like shaking everyone's hands, and I absolutely used to dread that on a Sunday. But the thing is, you can't not do it because then you all of a sudden come across as rude. Oh, she's rude, she doesn't want to shake my hand, or oh, she's rude, like she backed away when I tried to kiss her on the cheek to say hi, or you know, or oh, she's rude, she didn't hug me when I came in, or whatever. And it's nothing personal, it's just that some autistic people find touch really uncomfortable. And so for me, I would feel much more at ease if I didn't have the pressure and the worry of when I meet this person, I've got to shake their hand. Because for me, I would find that really difficult. But for example, if it's someone I'm really close with and I feel comfortable around them, I might find those things easier. It really depends on the person, on the situation. And like I say with all these things, every autistic person is different and struggles with different things in different ways. And so this is just based off of my experience, but talking generally for the majority of autistic people. So another thing that autistic people may be seen as being rude for is suddenly leaving a room halfway through a conversation with no explanation. Now, to a neurotypical person, you might think, oh, that person just left during my conversation. How rude. But actually, there can be multiple reasons for this. Autistic people are very likely to encounter a sensory overload during social situations. So for example, I could be having a conversation with a friend and it could be right in the middle of a high street where you've got the sound of police cars going past and then the sounds of the traffic light beeping and the cars honking their horns and people walking and chatting as they go past and the open and close of like shop doors, and then you've got the smell of the candle shop down the road and the feel of people brushing you past as they walk past because there's no space on the pavement. And all of these things can suddenly become very overwhelming for an autistic person, that they feel like they have to leave to become safe and get into a calmer environment. And so yes, this can be seen as rude, but at the same time, it's really what an autistic person has to do to survive and make themselves feel safe in a situation where it all gets a bit too much. And I also want to acknowledge that, yes, a lot of things that autistic people do can come across as rude, and they might not notice it that way. And yes, I understand that, you know, leaving a conversation halfway through is rude, but at the same time, autistic people have to do what they have to do in order to cope in a world that isn't built for neurotypical people. So can you really blame them? Another example is I have a massive phobia of balloons. I'm not sure if I've ever talked about that on my YouTube before, but I have a massive phobia of balloons. There you go, I've said it. From a young age, I can remember not liking them. I think it's mainly like the loud noise of when they pop, but also even if I knew it wasn't going to pop, it would still make me nervous being in a room with it. And there was this one time at church where I was having conversations with people, and all of a sudden a kid is throwing around a balloon, and I panic and run to a corner round the back and hide, because I was literally in a panic attack being scared of this balloon. And so I don't know what the other people were saying in their conversation, because I just left. And yes, that can come across as rude, but actually in the moment I was terrified of this balloon, and I felt like I had to do anything I could to get away from it. And that's actually very healthy, to take yourself out of a situation where you know you're going to get panicked, rather than trying to carry on a conversation where you're not really listening or engaging, because all you're focusing on is this thing in the background that you're absolutely terrified of. And once you explain to the people afterwards, they would definitely understand. So maybe think twice before assuming that autistic people are just rude. There's probably a reason behind them having to leave unexpectedly. Okay, the last one I want to talk about is something I do quite a lot without even realising it, which is sharing a relatable story in order to comfort a person. Now, a lot of autistic people can come across as self-centered and being all about themselves, especially in a situation where someone is saying that they are struggling or they're feeling low about something, and an autistic person doesn't really know what to say. So they come back with, oh, I can relate to that, this happened a while back, and telling them about a story that happened in their lives. That can come across as, oh, you're not really interested in my problems, you just want to talk about yourself. Well, let me tell you, that is not the case, for the most part. For me, personally, I find it really difficult to know what to say in situations where I'm one-on-one with a person, especially when that person is struggling with something, or they're feeling sad, or it's a situation where you've got to try and comfort them. From as long as I can remember, I've always struggled with knowing what to say or how to act in those situations, and I find them really uncomfortable. So a way that I tend to cope with that is by telling a story that happened in my life that can relate to what they're going through. And so, for example, my friend might say, oh, I just lost my pet hamster and I'm really sad about it. And I'll say, oh, I know how you feel, like when I lost my rabbit, like it was the worst thing in the world, and I couldn't get out of bed because I was really sad, and it's really not a great time, so I know how you're feeling. And then they might think, oh, well, you just want to talk about like your experience with it and like how you were feeling, and that's great, but what about me? But whereas I've said that because it's my way of saying, I know how you feel, I acknowledge it, and I want you to know I'm here for you because I've been through it. And that can come across as being rude and just wanting to talk about yourself all the time, but it's actually not. It's actually how I find it easiest to comfort someone in a situation like that. So those are just a few things where autistic people may be misinterpreted or misconceived as being something that they're not. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful. If you did, let me know in the comments down below what you did find helpful from this video, what you learnt from it, and don't forget to share it with everyone you know to spread more awareness of autism, and don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell to receive notifications every time I upload a new video, and give this video a thumbs up because it shows the YouTube algorithm that you are enjoying my videos, which is great for me. And I will see you next time.